Hey everyone, Casey Scanlon here. We're going to do another Lake of the Ozarks Fishing Report. It is January and the water's starting to get cold. Switching it up today. We're doing the video in my house instead of the shop. It's starting to rain. It's going to snow in the next day or so, and it's really loud in there. So we're going to do the fishing report from inside the house today. It's nice and warm in here, and it is cold outside. The water temp's getting cold, and the lake levels come up quite a bit. So last report we did, the water temperature was, hovering around that 50-degree mark. And right now, we're getting into the, low to mid 40s, especially after this front blows through, and we're going to get some of these, real low temperatures at night. We're going to start getting into those January temperatures, and hopefully the water temp stays above 40 degrees. When it's in those low 40s, those fish really like to bite. So fish have been showing up big time in the last week or two. Lots of big fish showing up. This fall's been kind of struggly, I guess you would say. It's the bite hasn't been red hot. Been catching a lot of fish, a lot of numbers of fish, but size hasn't quite been there for most guys. But here in the last week or two, really in the last month, that's really started to pick up. A lot of big fish showing up. Couple tournaments this past weekend. One of them took about 20 pounds. That's no A-rig. And then the next day, I believe it was like 21, 22 pounds, won that tournament. And, those are just smaller tournaments, probably less than 50 boats, and a lot of great fishermen in those, but big weights. So it shows you that the fish are starting to bite, and fishing's picking up. Been crappie fishing. Crappie fishing's outstanding right now, whether you want to fish brush piles, deeper brush, shallower brush, really doesn't matter. You just got to find where the fish are at. But brush piles, always a good bet. Big boat docks, whether they're on the main lake or around secondary points, things like that, they create a lot of shade. You want big boat docks, lots of shade, big swim platform, and usually there's some crappie hanging around. There's also some crappie that are just suspended in open water, and for those fish, we like a jerk bait. For the rest of them, an 1/8 ounce to 1/16 ounce with like a Bobby Garland on the end of it works really, really well. Blue ice. I think monkey milk is another one that we use a lot, just natural colors. Water's clear, water's cold, so keep your baits small and natural, no matter if you're bass fishing or crappie fishing. So we talked about the crappie, and we talked about some big bass showing up. Let's talk about what they're biting on. So the jig has been really good. I've got that on 14-pound Bass Pro Shops, 100% fluorocarbon right now. Dropping down a little bit on the jig size and weight. So this is like, a 3/8, 7/16, are a good go-to this time of year, but I dropped down the size a little bit, the profile. I'm using more like a finesse jig like we got here, and just a smaller trailer without as much action. I'll even use like a critter craw, or the Crocagator has a small little do nothing crawdad that I really like. I think it's called a ring craw. But brown, black, and blue, just match it to the watercolor. Green pumpkin. Don't get too crazy with it, but use that 14, 12-pound line. You're getting this Bass Pro Shops fluorocarbon, super strong, and that little bit lighter line is going to help get a more natural presentation out of the jig, help you catch a few more fish and get some of those light biters that you get this time of year. Of course, for both the crappie and the bass, the jerkbait has been stellar. It really just depends. The other day I had a pretty bright colored jerkbait on, and I could see the fish coming up on my Garmin live scope, running up to it and stopping at the bait. They wouldn't quite commit. Caught a few on it, but they were foul hooked, so immediately switched colors. Just went to something a little bit more natural and started catching fish. I don't know if this is the best color, but something a little more natural definitely produced a little better. So experiment with your colors. One day they're going to want something bright, flashy. The next day they might want something a little bit more natural, maybe translucent. Pearl or a bone type color is always good. So you really just got to play around with those colors, because the jerkbait, I'm not a big colors guy, but the jerkbait in particular, it seems like those fish can really get clued in to a certain color, a certain cadence, and a certain bait. So we're fishing that around brush piles, points, flats, the backs of creeks, anywhere that there's some shad, using my Garmin live scope a lot to see whether the fish are on the bottom or whether they're suspended. And that kind of helps me with my bait choice too. If they're on the bottom, using a jig or something I can get down there to them a little better, maybe an A-rig. If they're up high, I'm going to use that jerk bait for sure. And the fish change positions day to day. So you really got to stay on your toes and pay attention to what they're doing each day. But experiment with the jerk baits, the colors. As far as line goes, 10-pound Bass Pro Shops, 100% fluorocarbon, pretty much throw that all the time. That's going to help that bait sink a little bit, which I like. It's going to help you control the depth of it. You can get it down to a certain depth. If it's sinking a little faster than you want, or maybe that bait's riding too low in the water column, which with live scope I've noticed a lot of these fish are up real high. So anymore, I keep a couple jerk baits rigged up. I've got I've got one with 12-pound Bass Pro Shops fluorocarbon. I've got one with 14. So, depending on where the fish are at in the water column, I'm going to switch that up. But usually a 10 to 12-pound line is really good. Hayabusa TBL 930, number 6 treble hooks. They're sticky sharp. I use the ones with the NRB code on them, and they're the sharpest hook you can get. They're reasonably priced, and you won't regret it. You're going to catch bigger fish. You're not going to bend a lot of hooks, break hooks that you do on some of these light wire jerk baits. So try that TBL 930 out. It is a really great bait, great hook. And I've got it on this wiggle wart right here as well. So this is just an original Storm wiggle wart, 12-pound Bass Pro Shops, 100% fluorocarbon, and using just a 7-foot medium action cranking rod, something that's pretty limber, can help keep those fish buttoned up, but you can make an extremely long cast. 6:3-to-1 gear ratio reel. That slower reel helps just keep that bait moving at the right speed and gets it down there on the bottom, just rooting around in the rocks. So that's real important not to overpower these baits. Rock crawler will work. Let's see, there's a ton of baits, a ton of different crankbaits that'll work. Your DT series line of baits will work. The flat side baits are always pretty good. Fritz side, I haven't used that a lot, but that's a crankbait that guys use a lot in the cold water. So experiment with your crankbaits, but you can't go wrong with the wiggle wart. It's been producing. It's the bait I've been throwing most on my guide trips and just when I'm out messing around. I love to throw a crankbait. You can cover a lot of water with it, and as long as the water temp is above 41 degrees or so, and I've caught them in the 30s with this, but as long as we're in the 40s, you can just get on the bank and catch some fish. Secondary points, primary points, anywhere that the wind is blowing, bluff banks, channel banks back in the creeks. But in general, I kind of like that mixed rock or, bigger, ledgier, chunkier rock to throw this on. So really great bait to cover water when the water's cold and catches some really big fish. Super fun. I'm a big crankbait guy, so I look forward to this time of year. Your natural colors, this is just a natural craw, just your browns, even a red craw is a good option, but just keep it pretty natural most days. Shad patterns will work well too. These fish are feeding on shad, so you can't go wrong there. Experiment with the crankbait, experiment with the depth range, and you can really dial that in. Shad wrap is another good one this time of year. And then last but certainly not least, and of course you can get more complicated with your baits, but we're going to keep it pretty simple this week because great part about winter is you don't need much, and you can just focus on finding those fish, and they're usually around bait fish, and this does a really good job of mimicking that. This is just an Alabama rig. I've got some Bass Pro Shops Speed Shad swim baits on the back. That's it's a great little swim bait, inexpensive, got a lot of good colors, bunch of different sizes. You can get them at all the Bass Pro Shops, or you can get them online at basspro.com. But yeah, they're great little baits, a lot of good action, and they're super durable. That's what I like about them. They don't tear up like some of the other baits. Got that on a Johnny Morris Platinum rod. This is a 7'6" heavy action rod. It has a good tip, but I can set the hook well on it. And I'm using fluorocarbon line. You can use braid. Bass Pro Shops actually has a new braided line out, and big fan of it. It's awesome. Comes in a bunch of different colors. This is 10 pound for my spinning rod, and you can see they've got the fluorescent lime color. And been using the 65 in green, and they also got it in black. But I like the 65 and 50, you know, on the bait casters. They also have it in black, which I love flipping with a lot of times. That's the best part about this line so far. Not only is it castable, it doesn't kink, but it doesn't lose its color. You know, a lot of times with other braids, it loses its color really bad. You got to use a Sharpie to it. And this stuff, it hasn't had to use it so far. I've been using it all year long, and it's good stuff. But back to the Alabama rig, you can use braid. I really like to use braid if I can get away with it. I feel like I catch more fish on it, can feel my bait a little bit better. But in general, more bites on the fluorocarbon. So I'm using the 25 pound Bass Pro Shops fluorocarbon on that. Slow retrieve, again, you got to experiment with sizes. 1/8 ounce seems to be a good starting point, but anywhere from an 1/8, 3/16 ounce to a 1/4 on your jig heads, just to get it down to the depth that those fish are at. That's the key, is just getting it to the fish. So yeah, fishing's good. As the water temp continues to go downward, we get into these low 40s, these fish are just going to keep feeding. A lot of these crappies have eggs in them, so they're feeding up, getting ready for spring. You know, winter's here, so they know that it's time to move and time to eat. And, you know, fishing's going to be really good. I have some guide trips available. We're getting ready to go kick off the season here in Florida in a few weeks, the Bassmaster Open. But, you know, these springtime trips are booking up fast. And, you know, the fishing's going to be good this spring at the lake. So definitely going to be in town, you know, throughout the course of the season, and doing a lot of guide trips. So if you want to get out there, just let me know, give me some notice, and we'll find a date for you. But until the next time, good luck out there. We're going to be trying to do as much fishing as we can here in the next few weeks, and load the freezer up with some crappie and get a little practice in before we head to Florida. So good luck to you guys out there fishing, and we'll talk to you soon.